Welcome back. Well, I've gone through the film that I have left over after having given you a portion of it yesterday, and we've got this video and one more on Lutz. I could have done 3 hours just on the film that I had and just talking about the pieces. And as I said before, I maybe hit a quarter of the shop space in there. There were places I didn't even go to because I ran out of time and I knew it was pointless. So we are going back. Now, when we come back, we're going to get right into it. So, in a minute. The first piece I want to show you, and I'm going to show it to you before I talk to you about it, is a piece that you can still find all over the place. I mean, really all over the place today. And we'll talk about it after you've had a chance to see it. This piece is a very pretty turn-of-the-century oak dressing table. Calling it a vanity here. We have a drawer. On a piece like this, the thing that stands out is this beautiful quarter sawn oak. Really nice. Well, this was just a lovely, simple oak vanity with mirror. When I first started buying older furniture, this was back in the 70s in Hartford, Connecticut, I saw pieces like this all the time. I even had a piece like that. Mine did not have the mirror. I think I paid $30 or $40 for it. And I used it as a desk. I used it as a desk for years. I handed it off to some friends when their kids needed a desk, because this is the sort of piece you can throw in the kids' room. They can beat the daylights out. Well, they can't. That's kind of the point. They can try to beat the daylights out of it, and it's never going to show a mark. And then when they're older, their kids will have it. Yes, okay. So it's good, solid, functional furniture. Pieces like this were made as early as the 1870s, which is hard for us to believe because, it's high Victorian, and we expect the Victorian embellishments and so on. In the 1870s, it was considered sort of rustic farmhouse furniture. It wasn't elegant. This is no frills furniture. And then later, these, again, even poor people needed furniture. So this is not the sort of thing you are going to see in the fine manor houses. Not here, not in Europe, not happening. Pieces like this, though, good, solid American oak pieces, have been with us for generations. And that particular style lasted, as I say, a good 50, 60 years. You could still find pieces like that in the same general style. You can still find pieces like that, and at very good prices too. I have recently seen pieces like this. Usually with the mirror, they'll be at the higher end of the price range, and I've seen them for the $200 range with the mirror. Without the mirror, I've seen them going for as low as $50 or $60. The general price range, I would say around here, for a piece like that, no mirror, would be maybe $100. Excellent condition, sturdy as all get out. So those pieces are still really good bargains. Where are you going to get a desk like that for, $60? You could go to IKEA and get something made out of pressed cardboard and you would pay more for it. So it's a good bargain. Yeah, okay. All right. The next piece I would like to show you is another oak piece. And this one is a secretary bookcase combination. So let's take a look. Well, what are you up to? All right. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so you know how much I love the oak. Look at this beautiful little combination secretary bookcase, little mirror on the top. Here is your writing surface, and this is what the oak looks like under whatever stain. I am betting that this is stained, probably originally fumed, but let's close this up so you can see. Nice piece. We've got a little cabinet down here. We've got the bookcase, and then we have the mirror and the shelving on top. Now, the reason pieces like this have mirrors here is because the late Victorian householder would have cluttered up the top of this with wonderful little figurines, and the mirror would have bounced the figurines back to the viewer. Very nice. Once again, we've got applied decoration on the top. This is $4.75. Pieces like that, bookcase secretary combination, are always hot sellers. People love pull-down desks and bookcases. So if you're thinking of picking up pieces like this for resale, number one, bookcases. Bookcases are just, people go crazy for them because they're hard to find. Usually when they do find them, they tend to be very pricey, even if they're not in great condition. So people just love the daylights out of them. Same thing with secretaries. These days, when people are looking for, when people are looking for furniture like that, they're looking for pieces they can put into their living rooms in general. They want a piece that somebody is going to walk in their front door, spot, and say, that's what people are looking for. Bookcases, I think the bookcase connection is that in general, people who have higher educational levels are drawn to antiques, and they want something that will show off their books. I think it's just plain that simple. The intellectuals want the old stuff. Bookcases, as you will see, because I've filmed some more bookcases, they command some pretty high prices. The piece that we saw, that was stained. I'm sure of it. Now, oak from that period, and the bookcase behind me, and I'm sure you can see that clearly, is from the same period. And it had originally been fumed. We've talked about this, a highly dangerous and no longer legal process where they would put the oak furniture into a room, seal it off, and flood it with ammonia fumes. Well, you can just imagine what OSHA would make of that today. But it gave the lighter oak a darker, richer, older tone. That older tone is the thing. If you've seen really, really old oak pieces, particularly English oak, you know it has a dark brown characteristic like this bookcase. And it just, it says antique. So they did that with the oak pieces when they were new. When we get those pieces now, if they have to be restored, repaired, refinished, you saw the writing side of that desk. That was the part that would have been closed into the desk with the cubbies, so it's not the exposed surface. That's what the oak looks like. When we get a piece like that, we want to do something with it. Usually what we do is we stain it to get that oak color. That particular piece was a little overstained in my opinion, and I was looking at it thinking, if I had that piece, what would I do? I would start diluting that stain. I wouldn't want to remove all of it, but I would definitely want to take the edge off it, and I would want it to be the color of this piece, which, by the way, is Minwax Special Walnut. If you ever have a piece of oak, you want to turn it into fumed oak, that's the stain you use. That is the stain I have been using to turn scruffy oak into a nice fumed oak piece for 40 years. And the Special Walnut will give you this color. I did not do that with this piece. This is the original fumed oak. So I'm very lucky in that regard. But just throw that in the back of your head in case you ever find a piece and you feel you need to redo it. That's the stain you use, and it will give you that nice antique oak look. Next up, okay, another bookcase piece. So this piece was probably a shop piece. So we're going to take a look at this, and then, oh, in addition, we have on that same sort of length of film, we have two curved glass curio cabinets. So let's look. Well, as we move farther toward the back, we are starting to see some very interesting little bargain pieces. Look at this oak bookcase, cubbies. It probably originally came from an office setting. Price $235. And I'm going to tell you right now, that is a good price for this piece. It's very simple, as you can see, but look at the functionality of a piece like that. And then we're going to go over and take a look at the cabinet next to it. Okay, let's start off with the little applied decoration on the top. Very beautiful. And notice it's all like neoclassical. So we're talking about, it's still oak, but we're talking about a different period. Now, a piece like this, I would say, oh, look at those feet. I would say this piece has had some work done. The glass does not appear original. This piece might be. You see a little blemish right there. And this piece, I think, probably is original. The glass shelves would not have been original on a piece like this. It would have had wood shelves. This could, in fact, be a later reproduction of an earlier style. Now this piece is marked 1970s glass china cabinet, and it has very empire features. When you start looking at this sort of classical design, these ionic columns, I'm pretty sure that's ionic. Essentially, that is from the Empire period. Now, obviously, 1970s means Empire Repro. Very pretty piece. No shelves, which leads me to wonder what one would have stored in a piece like this. Okay, so our sort of bookcase cubby affair. Very nice piece. Absolutely some sort of utilitarian office, possibly even industrial piece. Nice, would function perfectly as a bookcase, and someone would be very happy to have that. I think that one kind of speaks for itself. Yummy. The curved glass cabinets. The first one was older than the second. The second was from a later date. It was, I believe, 1970s. So were those glass shelves there originally? No, of course not. It's only relatively recently that we have been able to create glass with enough strength to serve as a shelf. That's one thing. And that would be sufficiently shatterproof. Again, that's the other thing. So I think that piece has had a lot of work done on it. But do I think it's a modern piece? No, I don't. I think that first one was an older piece. It probably just got repurposed and upgraded. Well, I don't think upgraded, but I'm sure the people who did it thought it was upgraded over time. That's one of the other great things about pieces like this. You look at it and you say, yeah, well, some Victorian woman stuffed her little knickknacks in there, and then somebody in the 1970s stuck their collection of Walt Disney Christmas ornaments in there, And that's the interesting thing about this. Also, the second curio cabinet was 1970s, and Lutz does have more modern pieces. They have some pieces that are not antiques, just vintage. And usually they are vintage pieces that resemble older pieces. So they're repros of antiques. So I thought you might like to see one of those. And, this. It's a wonderful little wash stand that we have coming up next. Again, oak. So let's take a look. Now this, I'm going to slide down a little so you can take a look at it, is a wash stand from the turn of the century period, possibly a Grand Rapids piece. Notice the lines of the piece itself are quite simple, and they made up for it with ornate hardware. That hardware may not be original, but the original hardware would have been something very close. It's like a pressed brass with a bail pull. This is $125. It is a wash stand, and you can see that the little cabinet at the bottom was designed to hold the large pitcher and bowl. And it looks to me like it's about, I'm going to say at least 15 inches from the front to back to this widest point, and probably a good 30 inches across, maybe 36. Good size. These are now primarily used when they are smaller pieces as bedside tables. And larger pieces like this can almost always find a home in a small dining room as a sideboard. Now that piece really has a Grand Rapids look to it. And as I said, Grand Rapids, it's not one factory. Grand Rapids, Michigan, that area had a number of furniture factories, and they were producing furniture like this. And that furniture would be sold in places like the Sears catalog, and somebody would have paid $3 for that wash stand, like no kidding, $3 for that wash stand in 1910. That's the wonderful thing about these pieces. They were not high-end pieces. They were everyday furniture for everyday people. And look how well they've held up. Wash stands, I find, to be extremely versatile pieces of furniture, because you can take a wash stand, you can stick it in your bedroom next to the bed, and here, voila, night table. You can You can use it as a small dresser. I can easily see that, holding baby things in the top drawers. I guess it was, I don't know if it was one or two drawers. And then, stacks of diapers in the lower drawers. That can come into the living room. Ample storage, serve as an end table next to the sofa. Even, in a hall, like a small console table. I think those are great pieces. Again, it was that fumed oak finish, that brown sort of to resemble antique oak. And Lord only knows how many people got sick or even died from messing with those chemicals. But beautiful, beautiful piece. Next up, the 40s credenza. Let's take a look. Now this is a great piece. 1940s inlaid wood. It's a credenza. And by the way, it's correctly marked too. So one of the things I like about this store is I don't ordinarily come in here and say, I wonder where on earth they got their notion of what this is. $2.60, nice applied decoration, very pretty. I believe the tag says Art Deco. I'm not 100% sure I would agree with that, but this 40s period, it was a great revival period. Older things were being reproduced, and we've talked about that, especially prominent in between the wars. So the period between 1920 and 1940, people, when the world is in crisis, tend to want to surround themselves with things of comfort, things they would have remembered from Grandma's house. And this design is largely Sheridan, so it's definitely older. Let's take a look at this. Okay. Roseville, $850. Now that's Art Deco. Oh, and while we are here, I can't resist. This is a little made in Japan spoon rest. It's $25. This is the sort of thing that we tend to come across frequently. Nice piece. This one, I'm inclined to say this is a little on the later side of mid-century, 60s rather than 50s. Nice piece. Now, I totally understand why someone would look at this and say that is an Art Deco piece. Sure, I get it, but no, it's not Deco. It really has more of a Sheraton look to it. And we had talked about that when we were discussing 18th century furniture. There were some major furniture makers. Each of them had their own little style, their own little twist on it. And Sheraton was one of them. He very often worked in inlaid woods, really nice graining, and that was done with thin veneers in order to get that beautiful, like the flame mahogany and pieces like that, get that into the piece. But he loved those curved sides. So I would say that piece was simply a 1940s interpretation of pieces that had gone before. They were not over picky either, by the way. You could see things coming out of that era. And this is probably 1930 to about 1970, where they would say, oh, we're going to take, Sheridan's bow front and we're going to add Chippendale's cabriole legs to it and whatever. Usually they wouldn't have done that. They would have found a more sympathetic combination. But those pieces from the 1940s were very well made. usually very nicely styled. Yes, there are times when you look at them and say, whoa, what were they thinking? But in general, the styling was very nice. It had a strong 18th century look to it. You saw those and it's like, is this Hepplewhite? Is this Sheridan? It's just, because that was the influence. That whole sort of classical revival thing that they had going. All right, this is all we have time for today, unfortunately. I'm going to pick up the rest of this tomorrow, and even if I have to rush through everything, I am going to finish up tomorrow. I was really pleased to have the chance to take you all off to Lutz with me. It was a lot of fun. My fault entirely that we only got such a small portion. I should have known better. I should have allowed myself more time. But in fact, I goofed. So, and also, to be perfectly fair, I could probably do a month's worth of videos just going through their shop, just finding little things that are interesting that we should be talking about, that like I say, how to buy antique furniture it's an art. You really don't want to just go in and grab the first piece you see. And even if you look at something and say, I love this to death, you want to look at other pieces too, similar pieces, and make sure you are getting the piece you really want. Because even in a place like this is Carlisle, Pennsylvania. Now, if I thought Hartford, Connecticut was a secondary market, imagine what I think Carlisle, Pennsylvania is. We'd have to move up the ladder to be like tertiary. So usually you're putting money into it, and you're going to have it for decades. So you need to put the research in, you need to put the time into it, and that's another thing we should end up talking about. All right, I have a winner to announce from the Crazy Little Critters giveaway, and that is Tanya Lindsay, and I'm sure that she has been contacted already. If you haven't, well, Tanya, congratulations, you won. And let's see, what else do we need to deal with? I don't know. Probably that's about it. All right, have a great day, everyone. I will see you all tomorrow, when I am hoping to have the third installment and the final for this trip from Lutz. It's not just more case pieces of furniture. And there are, by the way, some gorgeous Art Nouveau pieces. So it's something to look forward to. All right. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. Stay sane. Enjoy our beautiful horizon photos. And again, I'll see you all tomorrow.